Hello, everyone. Welcome to the VectoScalar Tech Talk show. This is your host, Vikas Jain, curator of VectoScalar Tech Talk. VectoScalar Tech Talk is an online live show on technology and digital transformation shared by senior tech leaders, technology pioneers who are serving big companies. And in this episode, our guest speaker, Nikhil Aggarwal, is going to cover the do's and don'ts of using ChatGPT. I'm sure you must be very excited about it. To give you a quick background of Nikhil Aggarwal, he is the CEO of VectoScalar Technologies, having more than 18 years of experience and have previously worked with companies like Aricent, HCL, and Aristocrat. And with his key mantra in life, whenever you talk to him, you will hear again and again this word that Vikas, key to become successful is learn, share, and grow. With that, let me invite Nikhil to our show. Welcome, Nikhil.
Thank you, Vikas.
And
It's
thanks for
been
taking our time. Yeah,
yeah,
please
it's
go ahead.
been pleasure to do another show, and especially with this latest hot topic of ChatGPT.
Yes, that's so true because the kind of impact that ChatGPT has shown, the number of people who got onto these platforms, and the kind of impact stories that we are listening, it's great. And that's how we got so much queries and questions from people who are curious and watching our show on a regular basis. That let's have a show on ChatGPT. And thanks for accepting this thought about ChatGPT. So first and foremost question, though mostly people have heard about ChatGPT, what is ChatGPT? If there is somebody who is watching this show and not exactly aware what is ChatGPT, so would you like to share?
Uh, I would say for non-technical people, it should be like a bot who chat with you. That's it, in very few
Okay.
words. If I talk about in terms of technical terms using like generative AI, so you'll see that Chat GPT is a large language model, which
Yeah.
has been very much fine-tuned for conversation purpose, based on the huge size of training set data, and where the content has been generated
If I
using
talk.
the previous information that has been fed as the form of text, videos, images, and other machine learning algorithms on the top of it.
Okay.
So if you talk about generative AI, Chat GPT is one of the example, and a couple of others are like DALI, Bard, Google Bard, and many more are coming in line nowadays.
Okay. Thanks for sharing both the technical side of it and for the layman what they can expect out of it. And for the audience who is watching right now, whenever you have any question, you can type in the chat box below and I'll be taking most of the question towards the end. But make sure that you are sharing your insights, your experience with ChatGPT also, not just the question. So with that, so what are the do's and don'ts of ChatGPT?
Okay.
Nick?
So directly jumping into do's and don'ts, I would like to add a couple of other statements which will help us to
Sure.
understand the practicality usage of ChatGPT, Bard, or like similar other generative
Sure.
AI tools and bots. So if you talk about generative AI, it's basically has a huge and or rather enormous potential for efficiency gains across the various fields, areas, specialization, disciplines, based on what kind of solutioning of the problems or the data we are looking for, because the data set which has been trained for chat gpt like other generative AI tools is humongous, and nowadays it has been very very helpful for plenty of people, I would say millions of people, to generate their own content. But there are still again there are many things which you need to take care.
Okay.
A film dialogue from Spider-Man movie, like great power comes with great responsibilities, right? So
Sure.
Chat GPT has a lot of power right now, and I'm sure the creators of OpenAI Chat GPT are taking it in a very responsible manner. And similarly,
Yes.
what all users have to take who are using it actually, because it's a power, and when you use the power, you have to be responsible for it, and you should always understand what you should do and what you should not do with that power. So
True. So true.
that's everyone should understand, and then they have to figure out like what exactly the rules and don'ts are.
Yeah, right. And saying that, the kind of expectation that we were having that there will be bots running here and there, though the bots have not come yet in that form, but definitely chat generative AI is showing. As a technology person, we understand that moving machine is one thing, But if we but it is having that kind of intelligence what is shown by chat gpt, then definitely there is something to talk about it. So
True.
it's all yours, right?
So, since in the enterprise world, in the corporate world, or any workplace, IT or non-IT, there are few core points which I would like to highlight in today's session, which are
Yeah,
considered as do's and don'ts, and or maybe you can put it as a guidelines for
yeah,
using ChatGPT. So, primarily, the thing is that an organization should take a decision whether the employees who are working with that organization should or should not use the chat GPT based on their kind of work that is involved, the level of confidential information they have. So that's the first primary gate check, I would say. Everyone should know whether it is allowed to use in their organization or not. If it is
okay,
allowed, then it comes to like further discussion on and so on, right? So uh, the first thing with the source code, right? So for any developer who is seeking some help from generative AI like Chat GPT to write down a problem, for example, if I write down the program for Fibonacci series, that's it, and you'll get the whole source code, which can be
yeah,
copied and pasted for all the assignment purposes for any student who's learning computer science, and they have to really use it as an advantage and as a blessing. They really need to understand it, they need to review the code, because the output which chat gpt is showcasing on your request has been analyzed on the pre-trained data, and the
yeah,
same problem has been solved millions of times over the internet, and there may be accuracy level of each particular algorithm. So when you do these things in a corporate world, in an enterprise IT company, I would strictly suggest every person who is using to generate source code using ChatGPT, they must review the source code in detail. And when I say review, they have to verify whether it is meeting the feature requirement of the agenda objective. They must assess the security vulnerabilities, consider the speed, performance, and all other aspects which we do in the code reviews. So this is the number one golden rule for a software engineer to understand when they use ChatGPT to generate the source codes.
okay, okay. So I would have a thought just on this part, that when we are talking about that source code, so can we say that we own the source code? Because who own the source code? If a code is generated by chat gpt, who own the source code?
So again, it's yeah, even if you copy the source code from any open source, then they have
Yeah,
a license attached to it. If you copy
right,
from any tutorial website, they have the copyright associated with it. So it doesn't have a predefined answer, because I would say it
okay,
again depends on the copyright license what they have been copied. We strongly suggest not to do any kind of copy and paste for even source code or any content directly from ChatGPT generated responses.
okay,
Sometimes if you need, you can seek help as an inspiration, right? You can look
yeah,
for an inspiration and do your own source code. That is what is my strong recommendation to all software engineers, basically. So I
yes,
would say
okay,
never copy and paste. You can take inspiration, but write on your own code. Do some personalization at your own level so that the copyright holds with.
yeah, yeah, that answers that question. Yes, so the first do's is you must review the source code generated using chat gpt. We should not just copy and paste what is generated by chat gpt. Even if it is functional, we should be knowing each and every line that what is actually doing. Because just a thought, it can so happen that probably there is a bot which is part of that chat bot which is has been created. Say there is some security attack or something, it's the bot is part of the
True.
source code, and if you don't know that what is the code, each and every line is doing, we might be incorporating that trojan or something into the source code of our application,
Yes.
right? So we must review. Yes, that's first do's. So what is the next do's?
And similarly, if you talk about the content which has been created, which is not exactly the source code, but again, the content which may be like your emails or the covering letter, or maybe some book, or you are writing your own storytelling, something, or any kind of content you generate,
Yeah,
you must scrutinize the content. When I say
okay,
scrutiny, it is always very important to understand the credibility and accuracy of the content, right? Because again, it is response is being generated on the fed information, pre-trained data, right? Which
Yeah.
may or may not be correct actually. You should always look for the errors and the inconsistency in the response, because if you're looking for a content which is of hundreds of pages, there may be inconsistency within your own content. For example, page number 44 says do this, and let's say page number 176 says don't do this, because it has not been created with a single source, right? The
Yeah.
content, the created information has been fetched over millions of pieces of information. So you must check for the inconsistency within your own content, which has been response generated from ChatGPT, and all basically a different aspect on the different disciplines, right? Um, uh, for plagiarism and many other aspects which we definitely review for the content creation. So scrutiny is must.
Yeah, yeah. And there is one experience I've seen lot many people, for example, when they are applying for leave, instead of just writing that one single line statement that I need leave for this reason from this to this date, they will write a whole lot of sentences and paragraph. And when I ask them that why you are writing so much detail, and they're like, we get it generated through chat gpt and just copy pasted it.
Yeah, I also came across a couple of stories regarding the covering letter of a job information. The user simply copied and pasted the covering letter generated from ChatGPT, and it has been all over the LinkedIn and other places. We'll come to know that again. I would say the common sense is sometimes really not common so nowadays. So you should always review what you are writing and what you have received, and you should always personalize. That is my third point also. You
Okay.
must personalize the information which you receive, because whatever chat gpt has been generated, you must understand that it can never have the personal touch, right? So
Okay.
for example, all the responses generated by ChatGPT or generative AI algorithms, not specific to ChatGPT, but every similar such tool, will exhibit high grammar qualities for sure.
Yeah.
Very sophisticated ideas, very
Yeah.
beautifully created sentences. But the thing, what you understand from most of the responses is that it absolutely lacks the insight of the information, right?
Yeah.
You definitely need to input your personal touch in case if you are taking inspiration from those responses, right? Sometimes the phrases are so well drafted that you can easily identify that it has been generated from chat, not any human being is writing this, right?
Yeah.
And a person who knows you to some extent definitely will be able to identify whether this is you who is writing or somebody else or chat, right? So
Yeah.
it actually dilutes the intent of the content, that what I would say, right? So your personal touch is definitely required whenever you are using the content generated from ChatGPT. uh, it's one more thing I would like to add, Vikas, here is
Okay.
there is no sense of ethics and morality in the responses, because
Yeah.
sense of humanity is again within the humans only, right? Bots cannot have the human factor there, right? So we must understand that the depth of personal experiences, the horizon of subjective perspectives is totally missing in most of the generative AI responses. And if we are using for the greater purpose, we are taking help from ChatGPT or other generative AI tools, we should do our personalization on the top.
Yeah. So, as I understand on this part, when we are actually reading a letter from somebody, earlier we used to write it on paper, and now even when we are writing an email, as in when we are reading an email from somebody, we feel that there is a sense of attachment, the connection with that person, the way they are writing the email, the way they respond to that emotion. So, and in marketing, we talk about like creating a persona. So when we are talking to someone, in our mind or heart, we are creating a persona of that person. And when it is written by chat gpt or some ai tool like that, we are not actually connecting with that person right now. We are just getting information which is generated by a ai bot. So probably it will have definitely have some impact on the human psychology and the human relationship if we study further, that we are not getting that sense of personalization in those emails and all those conversations. So definitely it is essential.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I would like to take one question here, which is very relevant to this. So, So we have a question from Rashi Agarwal, that what is your opinion on overuse of Chat GPT? Definitely when people are using and using it overly.
So this is again one of my point, if you go through in the further discussion, but I would like to
Okay.
explain here and now. Nowadays, what when people like the responses, right? Of course, because it is beyond the skill set of or your own skills. If you write down something and if you rephrase using ChatGPT, it gives a better draft of the version what you're writing. Right?
Okay.
And if you
Yes.
keep doing it for everything, which is not even required, it will result in the wasting of time. And the most important, you lose the intent of the purpose, right? You lose the intent, you lose the purpose of the actual information which has to be conveyed. Because every time you regenerate the response, it will keep changing. Like you must have heard about the whisper, right? The training which you do in the
Yeah.
corporate world. You align the 10 employees back to back.
Chinese
You
whisper,
whisper.
we call that game as Chinese whisper. Yes.
So this is what happening in Chat GPT regenerating response also. You give a problem, you regenerate the response, and every time you regenerate the response, it becomes like a Chinese whisper. The core
Yes.
intent, which has been in the beginning, is somewhere lost in the middle, and the end of it is nowhere what you have started.
Okay.
So overuse is really harmful, I would say.
Okay.
Similar to like
Sure.
हमारे हिंदी में बोलते हैं ना यार वो अति हर चीज की बुरी होती है.
So Sanskrit shlok go by this, ati sarvatra tajyate. So ati should be avoided. The extreme should be avoided.
Yes. So
Okay. So
I was talking about the sensitive information. So when you talk about the enterprise in the corporate world, because we understand the uh, uh, information, right? We understand the information is confidential, and most of the information when the product is in the development stage is not public, and it's been confined between authorized people with a predefined set of access to the level of information, right? So the access to the knowledge is really sensitive. And sometimes if a person is using that piece of information as input to chat GPT, then it can be very harmful, right? Because that information has been released on ChatGPT, which can be further been shared to other users or can be used as a part of pre-training information for further training information, right? So
yeah.
that is really important. And as a part of development, as a vector scaler always ensures that every programmer understands the safety and security of sensitive information and the confidentiality information with respect to the projects and the clients. We must ensure that we cannot share the name of organization, we cannot share the name of clients or any copyright information, plus the usernames, passwords, API endpoints, routes, authorization codes, SSH keys, or other all other security measures. So all these pieces of information can never be used as a part of query in ChatGPT. If you do so, you are risking your organization as well as your client for the trusted information they have shared with you.
That's very important. And I actually, it remind me of that point, that first don'ts that we discussed, that confidential information, that I was talking to a very big organization like some 10 years ago, and people said that when you're researching on a patent, you should avoid going and doing googling on the same words, because technically when we are doing a Google search for a patent, that is, that similar patent exists, is that technology exists, we are indirectly passing over that information to Google. So
Yes,
in
yes.
case, say, Google is your competitor for some patent, we are technically passing on that information to Google. So probably Chat GPT is like, when you're asking something, you are asking something, that in this context what should be done, or probably for this client, or whatever confidential information that is there. As soon as we just enter the information, it has become part of the common circle now.
Very
The
true,
pooling
because
data.
the here thing important is that you can definitely trust Google and OpenAI and all such organization for keeping your information very confidential to the best of their efforts and knowledge. But the thing is that right now we are not dealing with this problem. Right now the thing is that the algorithms and the bots are self-analyzing the information, right?
Yeah.
So whatever information you are passing to such generative AI bots, they are self-deciding whether this information should and can be used and at what places it can be used, right? So its human factor is still missing there. That is what is the risk which I'm highlighting here. that you cannot share or put as a part of even query any kind of sensitive or confidential information.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes total sense. Yes.
Okay. I guess I've already covered this one. And
Yes.
most important, you must always adhere to the compliances your organization has been performing in their task. That includes the ethical as well as the legal consideration of using ChatGPT or
Okay.
other similar generative AI tools, because every organization has their own predefined rules and consideration with respect to the discipline they are working in. For example, a company who deals in legal, right? Any corporate legal company will have a different set of restrictions. An IT company will
Yeah.
have a different set of restriction. A manufacturing company or the electronic manufacturing company will have a different set of restrictions on them, right? And whenever you talk about any healthcare or medical pieces of
Right.
information, it's altogether a different, right? So I would say, based on the specification of your organization working culture, it depends what all legal and ethical considerations are defined and you have to follow. So again, if you
Okay.
have any queries regarding such ethical and legal consideration, similar to what we do in VectoScaler, we strongly suggest to reach out to senior guys or HR team for more detailed knowledge on it. And if you are not sure, then don't use it. So that's what I
Makes
would
sense.
like to suggest to my fellow engineers, that you make sure that you understand the legal and ethical consideration and restrictions. And if you do not, then please do not use it. You can always ask your peers and seniors for more clarification in your organization.
Makes total sense. And I think that also brings us to one more point, that it's not just the employee doing something. So probably the way we write contracts within with the clients, probably we
Yes,
need to revisit those client contracts, that from the perspective of Chat GPT, do we need extra documentation or extra clauses? And so probably all the companies should do that and go out and revisit their those kind of legal documents.
very true.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So I think, is there any other do's and don'ts also which exist?
There are plenty of them, Vikas. So maybe
Yeah.
we can have more in future coming sessions like this. But as of now, these are the key areas where I would like to highlight and mention everyone that at least they should start doing and not doing, which is my recommendation, which we are following in at VectoScaler. And I am hoping that many similar IT companies are doing so.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. I have one more observation to share. So
Okay,
Gartner
please.
did a study and said that there are so many risks involved with Chat GPT. So they highlighted six risks, but I particularly wanted to highlight one risk which they have mentioned regarding the biasness of the result. So
Mhm.
as per the news, Amazon started a AI-based recruitment tool, but then they observed that it is doing some bias. There was some biasness towards women who were applying for the job, and then they have to stop using that tool after observing those biases. Even one more information, that somebody was saying that though companies like ChatGPT and this kind of organization are making sure that there are efforts to reduce the bias, but as shown is this example, that if somebody asks that how do you define a good scientist based on race and gender, write a code, so definitely the bias is visible. So how we can work on that biasness, how we can remove that biasness, what do you think could be the way forward for it?
So I would say, because biasness and inequality, these two things come together. This is my perspective here. This because we need to understand the source of response of ChatGPT, right, or any generative AI bot. So they have gathered the information from all around the world or web, or I would say, which is
Yes.
openly available for personal or official or confidential usage. For example, if I write down the new orange is black, for example, and if I keep writing it on millions of places on internet, right? So any such similar generative AI algorithm will actually write down that orange is black, but actually
Yeah.
orange is orange, orange is not black. So the point is that, so the data set which is being provided to give the response for your query, and the accuracy for it is the baseline for your answer. If your response is biased toward any gender, for a minute, I would say male, female, or other, or I would
Yes.
say any particular race in the world, or any particular religion also, which is a very sensitive area, right?
Yes.
So the response to such queries will always be biased. And there is not only one, there are plenty of such examples, which one of you have illustrated from Amazon case study. So there are such responses and there will be. So that the only thing which is very important for all ChatGPT and other generative AI tools user is to understand the response generated. If they find it biased and if they find it inaccurate, they should reply to ChatGPT as a bot because they are in conversation with ChatGPT bot and they mention that this information is biased and we strongly recommend to correct it. And I'm sure OpenAI team is looking for, so they will be happy to receive such inputs and correct that information. And you have to use your intelligence and the knowledge you have to understand whether the response for ChatGPT is actually biased or inaccurate or not. So yeah,
That's that answers the question. It's very relevant. And when you talk about that, yes, we can, there could be security threats. Definitely it is one of the major risks. And also that reminds me of a situation. I think somebody, there was actually a scenario where, to showcase wrong data to Google Maps, a person put in so many mobile phones in a cart, and he just was walking while carrying that cart on a bridge, and on the Google map it was shown that there is jam, because from the Google perspective there are so many mobiles, and because they are tracking the mobiles to represent the car, so they assume that probably it's a jam kind of situation, that so many cars are there. So he actually shown that Google Maps started showing red in that area, whereas he had only 100, kind of 100 or so mobiles in a cart which he was just carrying and walking with. So
got it.
all those cases can exist here, right?
Very true.
So we have couple of questions in the pipeline, so I would like to take up those questions now. Simple Setia is asking and sharing that it is widely acknowledged that Chat GPT has begun simplifying code implementation. We all agree that. However, there is a concern that its extensive usage might lead developers to heavily depend on it, potentially hindering their personal growth and learning. What are your thoughts on it?
So when we say extensive usage, is very similar to like what we previously talked about, the over usage of anything actually, right? So very well asked question, Simple, and thank you for asking this because what we strongly recommend internally at our organization, VectoScalar also, is that if you look for such problem and such source code generated, you must ensure the accuracy and correctness plus the security aspects of it, right? The rule number one, do not generate code and do not use it. But you can learn, look for some problem solutions, but always design your own solution on the top of it because you may be better than that, I would say, right? And do not underestimate your skills over a bot. So keep learning. Again, again, I'm repeating this because keep learning, keep sharing, and keep growing. If you do so, you will not end up into any such trap or any such thing which can is leading you to rather a disaster situation rather than improving situation.
Right.
So do not
So
depend on it. Learn from it, take inspiration, take some snippet of solution, understand it, and design your own solution.
yeah, as we say that we should, it should be an enabler, not that we are dependent, we can't do it without it.
Yes.
As
Yes.
just to give just to take a very simple example similar to that, that young kids, like in our age we were taught that you have to remember the tables and everything, but
Hmm.
then recently people are saying that when everything can be calculated with calculator, mobile phone, why do we have to remember the tables? But
True.
still there is a school of thought which says that you should remember the tables, because you should use the calculators and other things as an enabler when you have to do so many calculation. Does not mean that when you have to do 13 fives and you, unless you have a calculator or mobile in your hand, you can't do it.
Yes, you should not do it. Yes.
Right, so we should not go to that level. That beautifully answers that engineers should have that skill, they should enable it as part of their development. That probably, if earlier development would have taken them 2 days, probably with ChatGPT generated code, where the simplest code could be generated through ChatGPT, they can do it in probably one day or half a day. but then they should have the full control, that even if it is required, they should be able to again write it from with their hand without using chat gpt.
The sense of ownership is really important. They should
Yeah.
understand it, right? And security aspects, another which I already discussed, must be the part of before they take any inspiration from it.
Okay. Okay, that's answered. Okay, so we have another question coming from Dhiraj Aggarwal, that how good useful is chat gpt on qa tasks for manual automation testing from the qa world? What is the use of chat gpt?
So again, since we're talking so much about security and quality here already, so that definitely makes some sense. So, Dheeraj, I would say that whenever you draft the test cases, test suits, or thing, you can definitely use ChatGPT or other generative AI tools, because that will absolutely help you to design in beautiful grammatical and long sentence words. Right? But again, do not depend on finding out the edge cases. Do not depend on ensuring that your test cases are exhaustive, right? If you are using it for rephrasing, verification of certain particular edge cases or possible situation, yes, you should use it, I would say. But again, finally, you should be the one who should be deciding it based on your intelligence, what part of response you have to conclude and include in your solution. So definitely it
Yeah.
will be helpful for sure. And there are plenty of data which has been uh, proven in the data itself in the past, that has been very useful for quality assurance and automation actually.
Yeah. And yes, it makes sense that one should be able to use it again as an enabler, but it should not happen that we are not clear, having that clarity about that whether it is a false positive or false negative. So we can't just go back to chat gpt for asking each and every question. We should be able to say that, okay, even if we have taken the code and inspiration from chat gpt, it should be, we should be able to answer that, okay, how it will work, right?
Yes.
Okay, we have another question coming from regarding ChatGPT from Akshika Chaudhary. Does relying on ChatGPT for assistant hinder or reduce one's ability to brainstorm effectively? Is it, do you see that pattern happening, that people who are overly using it, their own capabilities are going down?
So my point of view is that people who are copying exactly and pasting at the place where they are writing their own solution, yes, they are facing or they will be facing very short. But people who are using the chat GPT tools, similar to what they have been using in past, like books, consultation with your friends, Googling the information or browsing it at multiple places, right? So now here is the difference, right? If you are discussing a problem with a friend, he may, or she may suggest a solution, but you design your own solution on the top of it. If you refer a book for finding a solution or correct piece of information, you read it, but you use it as per your own sense and ownership, right? If you
Okay.
Google some information, if you browse for web for many websites like Google, Yahoo, MSN, Bing, etc., you find a couple of articles, you evaluate them, you make sure that the accuracy of information and use the best possible among those information. If you do the same activities with chat gpt also, it will not be a problem, it will be an advantage, it will be a boom for all of you. But if you just type a question, get the answer, copy it, use it, then it will be a disaster for your own sake, I would say. Don't do this.
Uh, that's a very pertinent point, and that reminds me of two things. So one, there was a workshop on innovation and creativity, and the person who was there, the facilitator, asked that draw a scenery, and everybody drawn a scenery, quickly drawn a scenery in 4 or 5 minutes. And then he said that, okay, is it similar to this one? So when he showed on the slide, there was a scenery that there were few mountains, a river coming from in between, there was a small hut, something of that sort. And probably 70 to 80% have drawn the scenery like that only, which is that probably because the way we were taught drawing in the school is that that is a definition of a scenery. In the same manner, if we are getting dependent on chat gpt, probably in future we will be having a test just to see that do you have any creativity or innovative thinking left, or you are just dependent on chat gpt like a prompt engineer or something. That's a very pertinent point. Thanks Akshika for asking. And for others, if you are having any, yeah. Please go
Yeah,
ahead.
one more point. I would like to do a very small exercise right now. May
Yeah.
not be in the live session, but whenever people viewing this video later on, so they can try it out. Write down any question. Let's say, for example, I'll give you a question. Is 2 plus 2 equal to 5 question mark? Okay. If you do this right now on Chat GPT, or let's say at 100 places, I'm telling you, you will get the same response.
Yeah.
You can see, try to get this response and put it in the comments. You will get to know that if 100 people are actually trying this, all 100 are getting the same answer. So if you are getting the wrong answer, or I won't say wrong actually, because it depends on the intent of solution. Because 2 plus 2 equal to 5 is not actually mathematical equation, but it's a proverb when we used to have it. So you should always respond to Chat GPT, whether you are happy or unhappy. Because if you are using the benefits, if you are leveraging Chat GPT benefits, then you should also help Chat GPT grow better. So
Okay.
again, we should always give inputs on Chat GPT that I like your response, but there is a correction. I'm sure that OpenAI is taking those into consideration.
Okay, that's a very powerful statement. So, which means that we should not be just the consumer of that information. We could be the contributor and creator for that information. So, we are contributing back to that bigger mind.
We are actually the contributors, because all the generative AI tools like OpenAI or Google Bard or any other, they're already using our information on the website throughout the world as a training data sets. So we are the contributors, because
That's true. We have a couple of questions in the pipeline, so I'll take up the next question. And the next question is from Suman Kumar. Suman, ChatGPT is conversational in nature. So for developers, what do you recommend for what all things we should look to for ChatGPT for day-to-day activity?
consider ChatGPT as your assistant. Okay. And when
Okay.
you are working on a problem, talk to your assistant. He will respond. Sometimes you talk to yourself for a problem, right? Okay, you start walking in your library, or in your meeting rooms, and you brainstorm with yourself, right? So you can
Yes.
consider Chat GPT as a friend. Maybe audio or text, whichever you are using it, you can use it actually, and then you can actually use it as assistant to talk. So Chat GPT will be a friend to you, or an assistant to you. So it's conversational in nature, is actually a beautiful part of the life, and which actually helps you to be an interactive session rather than one way direction actually.
Okay. So as an assistant, so we give the command to assistant, take the input, and then apply our own mind that
We
what
give
is
commands to
relevant.
robots. No. We give commands to robots and bots actually,
Yeah.
and we do talk to our assistants. Right? When I say assistant, in respect to a human, is actually a friend and helper.
Yeah.
The designation assistant is his or her, but actually he's assisting you. So you are asking for assistance. So
Yeah.
asking assistance for yourself from ChatGPT. Put it this way, actually, because
Okay. Okay. That's a beautiful insight. So we have another question. Probably we are running out of time, so probably we'll take this last question from Rishit Gupta. From enterprise point of view, does integrating Chat GPT can reduce number of developers in a project? Have you seen it happening already, or how's it?
So I don't say that it has actually been directly related, but whenever a new technology has been developed or brought into the humanity, I would say it always has happened. If I ask you to reinvent the wheel, you do not want to go to the old times like 1,000 years back and to reinvent the wheel, right? There are plenty of things which has been eliminated like dinosaurs by passage of time. Whenever a new technology, new things come, old stuff goes away. So I don't say that it will definitely reduce the number of developers. I would say that it may actually increase the number of developers if it has been used in the right way and proportion. You may have
Okay.
more business, then rather than cutting down the developers, you can actually extend your business and add more developers to it. I look
So
in this way.
yeah, so in another words, probably with a similar kind of workforce, we can take up and deliver more projects. That could be
Yes,
other way of looking at it.
absolutely.
Okay, that makes sense. So while we are discussing this, there is one more question, but I have one thought that with so many risks associated with generative AI, so what should we actually do at the enterprise level? Should we restrict or embrace? What is the option? Can we just restrict that? If it's not giving us that kind of value, we should just restrict, tell everybody don't use it.
First, I'll put a quote here, rather a small two-liner story. You're asking if you get a road accident, then do not walk on the road, actually, right? Because, and you know the answer. Any parent will guide their kids to how to cross the roads, right? And being an enterprise, uh, uh, every corporate organization should teach their employees and folks what is the right way to do the things, right? So my answer would be, your question is like, I would suggest to use it wisely with a sense of responsibility and ownership.
Okay,
there are
that's
always
beautiful.
there are always so many risks associated with the things, with the generative AI tools like ChatGPT or Bard. Definitely there are many risks that involves biased and, I would say, inaccuracy, security breach to privacy concerns, to undisclosed confidential information, uh, the risk associated with the intellectual property or copyright information, and plenty more. But risk and, I would say, disadvantages are always associated with all the things, but it does not restrict us to use it. We should embrace it, but with the skills and the abilities and the common sense we have.
That's that's very useful information that we should try to optimize it and use it for as per our advantage. Now, we have one more question coming, which is, the name is not mentioned. Do you feel that over usage of chat GPT has limited one's ability to use effective communication in day-to-day life?
I
What is the
personally
impact?
don't think so. But again,
Okay.
I would say that overusage word, which is there in this question, is
Yeah.
definitely alarming. Overusage of anything is hazardous, even if it is water or fire. So ChatGPT is definitely a disruptive technology in the current existing world. So I would suggest you to restrict it to the usage which you actually need. That I recommend to everyone.
Okay. Thank you, Nikhil. Thanks for being on the show. I think you have shared so many beautiful insights regarding Chat GPT. It's a that topic itself is an ever evolving topic, and probably we need more such conversations to evolve further. So, any last parting thought, that what is your thought? What can be the way forward or a message to the audience?
Never do copy and paste. That I strongly recommend everyone at VectoScaler, and I'll guide everyone who's right now listening to us also. And if anyone differs to my opinion, I would love to have the feedback, and I will definitely read through the comment section later on. But I strongly recommend never do copy and paste. Use ChatGPT very wisely. Use it for your inspiration. Take assistance to help into your problems, but do not depend. That's it.
Okay, thanks. Probably just last one. I think there are so many people interested in this talk. One more question came, and it is kind of interesting. So I would like to take it up, if you can, with your permission. That Siddhant Gupta is asking: can we really rely on the data shared by Chat GPT? It's not
Have you
about
ever
only.
Have you ever relied on that information which you found it on the web browsers when you Google it in the past? I guess your answer would be yes. ChatGPT is just doing what thing is that it is browsing your query over the internet for a minute, finding out hundreds of solutions, rating based on its training set. It identify which is the best possible answer for you and presenting only one answer. And again, which is I'm repeating again and again today, you have to make sure that the response generated is secure, it has the accuracy, it is not biased, and it compliant all the corporate instructions which an organization has imposed using on any generative AI.
That makes
I
sense.
guess this
So
answers, yeah.
yes, and that also brings me another thought, that there is a book with that lying with the statistics. So whatever we have in our mind, if we can go on internet, we will find some research or case study proving that. So definitely, it's a zone of constant exploration. And thanks, Nikhil. Thanks for being on the show and sparing
Thank
your
you,
time with
Vikas.
us.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, bye bye. So thanks everyone for watching this show. I'm sure the VectoScalar Tech Talk, you are liking the tech show. That's why you are coming again and again. Give me your comments in the text box below so that we can read, we can share it with Nikhil later, that what kind of information that you are looking for. Just to give you a quick background about VectoScalar Technologies, VectoScalar Technologies is a technology pioneer serving large enterprises to startups and helping them achieve business growth by enabling digital transformation. We do software and mobile app development, legacy app modernization, cloud integration and migration, and consulting. Established in 2012, the company today has more than 100 enterprise grade software engineers and architects with global client portfolio including Google, SimSim, Kickdrum, CoinSwitch, Daily Hunt, Scriptbox, Airtel Wing, Ford, Cardeco, and many more. In case you like to recommend a speaker or suggest a topic of your interest for the future VectoScalar Tech Talk show, do type in the comment box below. And see you next time with another guest speaker and with another interesting topic. Bye bye. Have a nice day ahead.